Title: The house that was supposed to be empty, caught on camera. The discovery: the house at the end of Lornwood Street had no business being remembered. It was the kind of place people passed without looking twice. Pale siding, a slanted roof, and windows clouded by years of dust. It sat behind a thin line of trees that never seemed to lose their leaves, even when winter pressed into the town like a weight. It was quiet, almost polite in its stillness. Too quiet. When the Reeves family inherited the property, they didn't even visit it at first. The house had belonged to a distant uncle, a man they barely knew and rarely spoke about. The kind of relative whose existence you acknowledge but don't question. When the attorney handed them the deed, all they wanted was to renovate it and sell it. Nothing emotional, nothing sentimental, just business. They hired a small renovation crew to go inside first. And that was when the first problem surfaced. The crew unlocked the front door, stepped inside, and stepped right back out. Not because of anything horrific, not because of anything dramatic, but because the house didn't feel empty. They explained it later like this: it felt like someone was watching us. Not from a window, not from outside, from inside the house. Like the walls had eyes. But work was work, and eventually, they forced themselves in. They spent the first 2 weeks removing furniture. The uncle had been a hoarder, stacks of magazines, trinkets from yard sales, rusted tools spread on every surface. Nothing dangerous, just clutter. But they moved slow, and the Reeves family wanted progress. So they decided to set up motion cameras inside, so the family could watch remotely and confirm the workers showed up every day as agreed. 7 cameras, placed in hallways, bedrooms, the living room, the basement door, all connected to a simple home monitor app. That's when the story truly begins. The first night the cameras were on, the house appeared normal. Dust drifting in the light, shadows adjusting as the sun set, the occasional shift in air pressure. Nothing strange. But halfway through the footage, one of the cameras, the one in the upstairs hallway, flickered. Just for a second. A blur. Like something crossing the frame. Not a person. Not an animal. More like a shape. A suggestion. The Reeves family's daughter, Mia, noticed it first. She was in her bedroom scrolling when the video replayed on her phone. She thought it was a glitch, shrugged, and continued her night. But the next day, the renovation crew reported something odd. One of the tools they had left on the second floor hallway had moved. Not far. Just a few inches. Angled differently. Set down, almost carefully. Not dropped, not kicked, not shifted by accident. They argued about it for half an hour. Each man swore he hadn't touched it. They laughed it off. But the laughter didn't last. On the 4th day, the cameras captured footsteps. Not the sound, there was no audio, but the shadow of movement. A slow pass across the doorway at the end of the hall. Something tall. Something still. Something watching. When they reviewed it, the workers refused to continue. They didn't explain beyond that. They just walked out as if the air itself had told them to leave. So the Reeves family decided to handle the house themselves. Clean it, clear it, sell it. They arrived on a bright Saturday morning. The sky was sharp blue, the sun warm, the trees calm. Nothing about the day suggested dread. It was beautiful. But the moment they stepped inside, the air felt wrong. Not cold, not stale, just heavy. The way a room feels when someone has just left, or is still there. They split up. The father, Daniel, took the hallway. The mother, Claire, sorted the kitchen. Mia filmed everything. Part documentation, part curiosity, part boredom. The camera in her hand showed what her eyes didn't. The shadows didn't match the light. Angles bent softly when they should have been sharp. Corners seemed to breathe. Hallways felt longer in the video than in real life. She didn't notice it immediately. Not until she reviewed a clip while resting near the stairs. She had filmed herself walking past the upstairs hallway. And there, standing just at the edge of the frame, barely visible in the dark, was someone. Not a face. Not a figure. A silhouette. Motionless. Watching. She didn't scream. She didn't call for her parents. She simply froze. Her heartbeat slowed to something heavy and deep, like she was underwater. Her skin prickled. The air around her thickened. She stared at the screen, hoping she was imagining it. She played the video again. The silhouette did not move. But it was closer, as if it knew it was being seen. As if it wanted to be seen. She lowered the phone. The hallway in front of her was empty. But the silence felt like a held breath. Her own voice broke it. "Mom." No answer. The house did not echo. It absorbed sound. And somewhere behind her, somewhere in the quiet, something shifted. Slow, gentle, like a footstep. Not threatening, not urgent, just present. As though the house had simply remembered she was there. The escalation. Mia didn't move at first. She remained frozen at the top of the staircase, staring into the hallway that looked as ordinary as any hallway could, except for the unmistakable sense that something was waiting inside it. She swallowed, her throat dry, and called again, louder this time. "Mom." Still no answer. But she did hear something, faint, just at the edge of hearing. A soft shuffle, like someone repositioning their feet on an old wooden floor. The house's silence made the sound sharper, clearer, as if the walls themselves were amplifying it. She stepped backward toward the stairs. Not running, not panicked, just careful. Like you move when you know something is watching you, and you don't want to show fear. Downstairs, Claire was in the kitchen, sorting through drawers. She didn't look up until she heard the soft creak on the stairs. "Mia? You okay?" Mia didn't answer right away. She was still processing the video in her mind. The silhouette, the angle, the way it stood like it had always belonged there. "Yeah," she finally said. "Just tired." She didn't mention the figure. Not yet. Not until she could prove it. They spent another hour in the house. Nothing moved. Nothing whispered. Nothing watched, or at least, nothing made itself obvious. But the silence was no longer an absence of sound. It was a presence. A listening. The air pressed close, like the house was leaning in. It was Daniel who suggested they take a break. They went outside, stood on the lawn, and the moment the door closed behind them, the air changed. It felt lighter. Free. Mia inhaled like she hadn't taken a real breath the whole time she was inside. Her parents noticed. They didn't say anything. Some truths don't need words. That night, back home, Mia reviewed the footage she'd recorded. Not just the hallway clip. The whole day. And that was when the pattern emerged. Every time the camera panned near a corner, a doorway, or a shadowed end of a hall, there was the hint of a shape. Never full. Never focused. But present. Like something was pacing the edges of visibility. Like it only existed when it was not being looked at. But there was one moment, one single frame, where the figure was clear enough to recognize height. It was tall. Very tall. And the angle of the shoulders suggested it was facing her. Mia paused the video. Zoomed in. Adjusted the contrast. There was no face. Just darkness where a face should be. A void. A suggestion of a head without features. Her chest tightened. She didn't scream. She didn't panic. She closed the video. And she didn't tell her parents. Because she knew they would go back. And something in her, something deep, whispered that the house wanted that. The next morning, Daniel returned alone. He didn't tell his family. He wanted to just finish a few small things. He wanted to act like the head of the household. The rational one. The one who didn't believe in shadows or feelings or silence that breathed. He unlocked the door at exactly 10:04 a.m. The house greeted him like it had been expecting him. Warm air. Stillness. Nothing out of place. But there was something strange. Every drawer in the kitchen, the ones Claire had sorted the day before, was open. Not messy. Not pulled apart. Just open. Carefully. Deliberately. Like someone had been examining each one, gently, quietly, looking for something. Daniel closed them again, one at a time, forcing a laugh that sounded hollow in the empty room. He walked toward the stairs. Halfway up, he felt it. Not a sound. Not movement. A proximity. Like someone was standing directly behind him. He didn't turn. His breath tightened. A drop of sweat slid down his back. He continued up the stairs. When he reached the top, the hallway light flickered. Twice. Then steadied. He exhaled, long, controlled, because he refused to be frightened by a building. He checked the bedrooms. Nothing. 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 But when he reached the last room, the master bedroom, his hand paused on the doorknob. There was no reason to hesitate, but he did. And then he opened it. Inside, everything was ordinary, except for one thing. On the floor, in the center of the room, was a stack of objects, neatly arranged. Personal belongings. A watch, a pen, a pair of glasses. All belonging to Mia's uncle. But here's the part that made Daniel go still. The stack hadn't been there before. He knew that. Everyone knew that. It was arranged like an offering. Or a message. Or a memory. Daniel stepped closer. Something in the air felt wrong. Like walking into a space that had been recently occupied. He reached for the watch. And the door behind him closed. Slowly. Quietly. Not slammed. Not jerked. Just closed. Like a hand had guided it. Daniel didn't turn around. He couldn't. His body wouldn't. The silence in the room thickened, warm, intimate, aware. Then, from behind him, something breathed. So close, right at his ear. Not a voice. A presence. The kind of presence that isn't born from a living thing. The kind that remembers. Daniel walked out of the house without looking back. He didn't run. He didn't speak. He just left. Locked the door. Got into his car. And drove. That evening, he sat in silence at the dinner table. Claire asked how the house looked. Daniel didn't answer. Mia watched him closely. She didn't need to ask. She knew. He had seen it too. Whatever was inside the house was no longer content with the edges. It had noticed them. And now, it remembered their names. The revelation. The Reeves family didn't return to the house for 3 days. No one suggested going back. No one said the word house out loud. They spoke around it. They tiptoed past it like someone asleep, someone who would wake if disturbed. But the house didn't stay quiet. It came to them. On the 4th night, the cameras still installed inside the property turned on by themselves, even though no one opened the monitoring app. The system began uploading clips on its own, short recordings, each only a few seconds long. The notifications arrived one after another, vibrating the silence of the Reeves' living room. Motion detected, hallway camera. Motion detected, basement camera. Motion detected, master bedroom camera. At first, none of them checked. Then Mia did. She opened the hallway clip. The screen showed the upstairs landing, dim, still, empty. But the shadows along the wall were wrong. They were too long, stretching in the wrong direction. Stretching toward the camera. The next clip played automatically. Basement stairs. Pitch black. But something moved in the dark. Not forward. Not sideways. Upwards. As if it were climbing the darkness itself. Mia flinched and shut off the phone. Something pulsed behind her ribs. Not fear. Not panic. Recognition. The house wasn't waiting. It was calling. And Daniel felt it too. Because he stood up without speaking, took his coat, and walked toward the front door. Claire caught his arm. "You're not going back there." But his eyes, those eyes that had seen something breathe behind him, were distant. Not possessed. Not confused. Just drawn. "I left something," he whispered. But they all knew it wasn't about the watch. Something in that house had touched him. Not physically. Not violently. It had touched memory. And memory is the hardest thing to escape. They went together. Not to face it, but because none of them could let one go alone. The drive was silent. The house sat exactly as before, still, dim, waiting. The trees around it didn't rustle. The wind didn't move. The sky felt smothered. When they stepped inside, the air closed around them. Familiar. As if the house recognized them. As if it was glad they had returned. The living room was quiet, untouched. The kitchen drawers were closed. The stairs waited. But the house wasn't quiet. They didn't hear footsteps. They didn't hear whispers. They heard something worse. Breathing. Not from one room. Not from one direction. From everywhere. The house inhaled. The house exhaled. Like walls were lungs. Like wood was skin. Like the house was alive. Daniel started up the stairs again. But he wasn't afraid this time. He was remembering. "I came here once," he said softly halfway up. Claire and Mia froze. "What?" "When I was a kid. Before the family stopped talking to him." His voice was distant, like he was reading his own memories from far away. "I stayed here. Just once. I remember the hallway." Mia's breath caught. The hallway where the silhouette stood. Daniel continued climbing. Claire followed, whispering his name, trying to keep him present. Mia brought up the rear phone recording instinctively as if proof mattered, though she already knew no one would believe this. They reached the upstairs landing. The hallway stretched before them like a held breath. And then, the silhouette stepped into view. Not from a corner. Not from a doorway. Not from the shadows. It stepped from the wall. As though the wall had always been a doorway, and flesh simply remembered how to return. The figure was tall. Too tall. Its head brushed the ceiling. Its limbs were long, but not distorted, just wrong in proportions no human possessed. Its face was not a face. Just darkness, thick and shifting, like smoke pressed into the shape of a head. It did not move. It did not breathe. But the house did. Daniel did not step back. He stepped forward. "I remember you," he whispered. Claire grabbed his arm. "No, Daniel, look at me. Look at me." But his eyes were locked on the silhouette, and in that moment, Mia understood. The house didn't want them. It wanted him. Because he had been here before. Because something in him belonged to it. And the silhouette? It leaned. Not toward Daniel. Toward Mia. As though choosing. As though deciding. Claire screamed. The sound shattered the quiet like glass. The silhouette's head twitched. Not toward the scream, but toward the sound of a memory forming. And the house exhaled. The walls pulsed. The lights flickered. The floorboards groaned, not from weight, but from recognition. Daniel pulled Claire and Mia behind him, shielding them, and for the first time, fear broke his voice. "We're leaving. Don't run. Just walk." They moved backward, step by step, down the hallway, down the stairs, through the living room, toward the door. The silhouette did not follow. It simply watched. Patient. Certain. Because it knew something they did not. When they reached the doorway, Mia turned back once, just once. The hallway was empty. The silhouette was gone. But she understood. It hadn't disappeared. It had simply gone where it had always been. Inside the house. Waiting. Remembering. Because houses don't forget who has lived in them. Houses don't forget who has returned. And some houses don't stay empty. The house is still there, waiting for its next visitor, and it remembers every name.